Oh, no, now I do. All right, share screen. Cool. All right. Can everybody see this? Give me a thumbs up if you see my iPad here. You see it? Yay. All right, cool. Cool. So we're going to be getting into BDMs, which stands for Business Development Manager or a Business Development Person, a BD, sometimes they're called. Just to address this real quick, why do we call them BDMs instead of just a salesperson? I think this largely has kind of come into the industry this way because there's a lot of confusion because most of y'all probably also do real estate. And so anything related to sales is usually considered to be real estate. And so that's why I think this term has sort of grown and been adopted. Also, a business development person, they're developing business. And so to address something out of the gate that's different, well, maybe I'll ask that as a question. How is a salesperson different? How is a closer different than a BDM? How is a setter different than a BDM? And like, so what is a BDM? All right, cool. So go ahead and I want everybody to get the chat open if you can figure out how to do that here on Zoom. And you're welcome to throw questions in any time. I'm going to keep the chat up so I can answer questions, but we've got a small enough group. Feel free to unmute or raise your hand if you have questions, and we can make this more of a conversation. So what I would love to do real quick is just go around real quick. Feel free to unmute. We'll go whoever's hot first. And my question is, what questions do you have around getting a BDM? What questions do you have related to business development? And so I want to just map out what everybody's questions are so we can address and tackle everything. And let's build out the agenda together here real quick. And I want this to be tailored to you. So who's hot? Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
All right, Carlos, you're working on this right now.
Yeah. I don't know that I need so much help on the actual hiring of the person, but I am a little bit struggling with what to do once I have the person. Like how to train them, what sort of KPIs and expectations to set. Because I imagine the first 3 months will be like a ramp up period and they probably won't be producing that much. So it'll be kind of like an escalating production. But in that first like month or two, what is like the best use of this person's time and how can I really maximize or accelerate their performance in a relatively short period of time?
Okay, onboarding, training. Let's call it measuring performance. What's
not you? My internet is doing this.
Oh, okay. I can tell you're frustrated.
I am frustrated because
you're frustrated at.
I'm not mad at you.
Okay. Like what I do? Did I do something?
Not you. What's this stupid?
We never know, right, guys? All right. So BDM, what else? Anything else related to this, Carlos?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Onboarding, getting them trained, and then measuring performance, right? Okay, cool. What other questions do people have about BDMs?
Let's talk about pay, right? I mean, base plus incentive, but the management fee is not all that much on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So, how do you make that incentive big enough for them, or what should it be?
Yeah, well, you definitely don't make it monthly. Okay, so but we'll get into that. Like that's really bad comp plans. I've seen those. They're like give our BDM 50% of everything they bring in. I'm like, you are going to be broke forever. All right, so cool. Great. We can talk about comp structure, comp plans, and creating the right. And really, what we're talking about here is incentive, right? We've got to create the proper incentives to motivate them, right? Okay. Anybody else? Scott, what were you hoping to get out of today's call or conversation?
General understanding of what this person's roles are. Additionally, as Mike mentioned, the comp incentives, and when this is the right time to pull the trigger to add somebody like this into the portfolio.
Okay, great. All right, great. Any other questions related to this? All right, how about JB on the road? Mr. Bond. Autobahn.
I had a question in terms of like compensation for sure, and I think one of the gentlemen already asked the question: is that what time is a good time for adding a BDM?
Okay.
Like my perspective is like anytime is a good time. I mean, the bottom line is that you're adding business. I mean, I'm just starting, so I already have 5-6 properties that I'm working on right now, but I have that urge of getting more numbers, whatever way I could, to add numbers to my portfolio. That's my thought process. And how can I add a team member at some reasonable margins or margin sharing or compensation that can help me from a financial perspective and also enhance the development of my portfolio? That's where I come from.
Got it. Right. Yeah. So if we get a BDM, assuming we get the right comp structure, and they're doing a good job, they should be making us money, not costing us money, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Most everybody else on the team will just be an expense. They'll be costing you money. They're not generating more revenue. And so, but this person's a bit different, right? Okay. Let's see. John McVoy, Brian, Yair, any questions about this? Mario?
Well, hi guys. Quick question, like where do you find these, BDMs, and how do you screen them? Like what are the right questions to ask, like about experience and, or how to properly interview them, so you're getting the right person. And then kind of a game plan, like after you found him, what do you do? Like you onboard him, you train him, and then you set up goals to measure performance, and then, work on the comp plan. What is, like, I would like to kind of get an idea of what the game plan would be once you get this person, like until, it starts producing something.
Got it. Okay. We'll just have game plan because I think we have the other things. Maybe like a roadmap. And we're making progress. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, good. Anyone else have some questions related to BDMs?
I think I can add another factor to it for the pool. Like, is like the way we are like property managers, like there has to be a pool of BDMs that like step up and say, hey, this is me, I can do this for you, and this is what my compensation will be. Like, somebody who could be a driver to start with, like a pool of drivers.
I don't understand what you're asking.
I do. I get it. I know exactly what you're trying to say. So, and I just said this to you the other day. So is there somewhere that I'm ready to hire right now, and I want a salesperson?
Like they're all hanging out somewhere?
Like, is there a source that I can just go in and be like, hey, who wants a job? And people would be like, oh, I already have experience. And like, I'm a salesperson and I know how to sell. Like, oh, I'll do this for you. Like, is there either a service or a pool or a group, or is there like something? And maybe this is very Cole Gordon-esque. So let's put that down so that we can talk about some things like to be aware of with services like that.
Where do they congregate? And yeah, and then
it's fair.
And related that, like placement agencies. Okay.
Yes.
Well, and going along with that, if there are some things that might help identify who may be a good person, whereas who may not.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are.
Okay, so related to this, I think it'd be very important to share, and this is kind of foundation. I was wondering if anybody would get to this, but we want to figure out I think all of you, before you go hunting for something, you need to know what you're looking for, right? You need to know what are the attributes of a good BDM. So you know how to identify. Okay, so all right. Anything else anyone want to add, or let's dig into this? Ryan, anything else?
Those are all the questions I had down. I'd probably say one more, and that would be after the fact is when the time comes for them to start, who's generating the leads? Is it
Okay.
that on the owner, or is that them? Is that just part of their duties?
Great question. I get this quite a bit. All right, who's responsible, right? Okay, all right, cool. Let's tackle this. So first, why don't we start with the goal in mind? Let's talk about what a BDM looks like so we can identify them. So even more high level, I'm going to share a quick framework. Some of you have seen this. And this is what I call the 3 fits. So we'll just cover this briefly. Those of you that are clients in the mastermind, you're very familiar with this. Probably.
They've heard all about this just last week.
Okay, so we've got culture fit, skill fit, and personality fit. And if you have all 3 fits, then you have what I would consider the ultimate team member, right? And generally, the ultimate team members, when you get the right person that's the right culture, personality, and skill fit for the role, for your business, for you, they will yield probably 3 times the output of a standard normal employee that's missing 1 or 2 or maybe all of these. Okay. And any of you had frustrations with hiring people before? I guarantee one of these was missing without exception. Okay. So let's talk about these just real quick. So culture means they share your values, which means you need to have your values defined. We get into this in detail, how to do this correctly and how to create the culture of the business and define the cultural materials in the mastermind. But ultimately, this means they're people that you like, that you want to be around. They lower your pressure and noise, that you trust them, because if they don't share your values, so let's say they're the personality fit and skill fit for the role, but they're not a culture fit, you will never trust them, right? If there's just that intersection. If they are the right culture fit and skill fit, but they're the wrong personality for the role, so they know how to do BDM type of work, for example, they share your values, they believe in your business, they believe in you, they're a good culture fit, but they're the wrong personality for the role. They will never be good. I'm going to put never great. Okay. They will never be good at it. You will try to micromanage them. You'll try to push them. There will always be friction and they will always suck at it and they will always avoid doing the things they actually need to do because it's uncomfortable for them. Okay. Even if they say they want to. All right. And you probably had team members like that before, right? If they are the culture fit and a personality fit, right? They share your values. They love you. They believe in you. They're the right personality for the role. They know they want to sell, but they just lack skill. This one is easy to solve. They can be taught. Right? This skill is really the only one you can actually move the needle on. You cannot generally change people's personality without a massive amount of trauma. You don't want to try and do that, right? You cannot change their culture, and usually it's going to be worse, right? You cannot change their values typically unless you convince them to join your business as if it's a cult, right? You just cannot change their values. This comes from upbringing, life, religion, family, whatever. And so these are the 3 fits. Skill is the one you can move the needle on. So we have to make sure we find people that are the right culture and personality fit. If they lack the skill, that's okay, because they can be taught. But they could have all the skill in the world. They could have been doing business development stuff for many, many years and bounced around from business to business. And maybe they're not the right personality fit for it. So they're never really great at it. And they will never do an amazing job. Okay. And you might try and move somebody on your team into that role and they'll never be great at it. All right. Everybody get this? Give me a thumbs up if this makes sense. Okay. This is foundational. There's no point putting in the effort to like do any of the other stuff we talked about with the BDM if you bring in the wrong person, right? So we figured out how to identify what they kind of look like. Let me tell you a little bit more in detail, specifically about salespeople, right? So there's two types of, I want to go quick on this, but there's two types of people related to what's called an economic score. So there's those that have a high economic score and those that have a low economic score. The only people I find that have high economic scores usually are natural salespeople and entrepreneurs, business owners, entrepreneurs. All right, cool. And this is everyone else. And this shows up on a DISC assessment on what's called the values index typically. And there'll be some sort of values index related to their economic attribute or score. And if this is low, what this means is like these people, they love money. They like money. They're motivated by money. If their economic score is low and you try to motivate them by giving them a commission structure or paying them for performance, they won't be motivated to improve. It doesn't motivate them. So if they're not money motivated, what are they? It's recognition. They want attaboys, attagirls. They want to be seen. They want you to just recognize. And most entrepreneurs try to give them compensation when you really can just like praise them and they would feel amazing. In fact, usually I see entrepreneurs, because they're in this camp, they will overcompensate people that want recognition. They'll overcompensate them, which actually, oops, where'd my screen go?
I don't know.
There we go. They'll overcompensate them, which actually decreases their performance. They start to self-sabotage and they unconsciously like destroy their results. And so they become worse if you compensate them too much or incorrectly. Does this make sense? I know it's crazy because most of us here, we're probably all entrepreneurs and we love money. Like how many of you hate money? Raise your hand. Yeah, exactly. Right? Nobody here hates money. So, but your team members, they don't hate money, but once their basic needs are met, they're not really motivated by more money. They're motivated by recognition, ease, comfort, whatever, right? So good salespeople are money motivated. They would have a high economic score on a DISC assessment. Now, the typical archetype of salesperson is a DI, which means they are a driver or driven, and they are very focused on interpersonal, which means they have the gift of gab. They love talking to people. They like relating to people. These two attributes are extroverted on a DISC assessment, and these two are introvert attributes. So they're going to be more on the DI side. Definitely high D, because a D is somebody that will push through objections. They won't take no for an answer on the surface. They'll dig deeper. They will call somebody 3 times in a row without any discomfort until they pick up. And then they'll be super sweet to them and they'll charm them with the I, right? With their interpersonal skills. In most people, especially people that are generally in this camp, if you say, hey, could you call these people? And if they don't pick up, call them 3 times in a row. They're going to feel major like anxiety. This is lightning bolt. This is like pain. They're going to be like, do I have to? This sounds super awkward. If you're like, hey, cold call this list of 600 people, they're going to be like, oh man, that sounds really uncomfortable. Can I just text all of them? Right? So there's always going to be friction if they're the wrong personality type. So generally, if we're looking at, so that's DISC. If we look at Myers-Briggs, where you have like ENTP, E, and then ISFJ, you have these 2 different attributes, and it could be any combination of these, right? So E is extrovert, I is introvert, N is intuitive. They skip the first letter so they didn't confuse it with the other I. And then S is sensor, So they're more big picture theoretical, or they're more grounded practical reality. And then they're a thinker or a feeler, which is usually pretty easy to identify in most people and in yourself. And then they're perceiving, which means their brain likes to get all of the different ideas and look at how everything interrelates and interconnects like a crazy spider web. And then they come up with something amazing, right? That's how they formulate their thinking. Whereas J's generally are like, they already have a box and they just have a question. Is it inside this box? And if it's out here, then they throw it in the garbage can immediately. They don't give a shit about aliens and, you know, theories and stuff like this that might be too out there. They're like, that's a waste of my time, right? J's are generally more organized. P's are more creative and maybe a bit messier. They thrive in chaos and are masters at creating from it. And J's want calendars and spreadsheets and checklists. Okay. So as far as salespeople go, they can be a lot of different personality types. Introverts can sell well. They can, because introvert generally means they enjoy one-on-one interaction. So they might not be as pushy or as driven, but they still enjoy the relationships with people, and they may be pretty effective, right? They can, but typically you're going to see the DI attribute paired up with some sort of extroverted trait. And generally, I would say salespeople that are feelers generally are more effective at connecting with people, because they know that sales happens based on feelings and then it's backed up with logic. Whereas most decisions that if logic is there, like, hey, this is the best system, you should use us for property management, like it all makes sense, but they don't get that feeling that they feel safe with you or whatever, they will then say, well, it all made sense, but I just didn't trust them. Or it all made sense, but it didn't feel right. So I went with these other guys. They made me feel good. Okay. So generally, a lot of times women can make better salespeople because a lot of times they're more in tune, they're more intuitive, and they're more in touch with feelings. And so, you know, they can be really effective. So, you know, ENFJs, they can be really good. They're very focused on on a community of lots of people. They always want to make sure everybody's getting along, right? There's ENTJ, which is, I believe, the entrepreneur personality type, very driven. They may go start their own business, but they might be good salespeople. There could be a whole host of other types, but understanding these, if you ever have somebody do a Myers-Briggs test, you can have them do it for free at 16 personalities.
I put the link in the chat.
.com. And if any of these attributes is close to 50%, it might be a mistype. But then you can take whatever their name is and then, or their letters, and then you can go to YouTube and search for this phrase, like ENFJ, and then in minutes. Put in minutes and you'll get these little cartoony explainer videos. You can watch that and you go, oh, would this be the type of personality that I want for my salesperson? Everybody has a different way of doing sales, right? Some of you are more hunters, more trappers, you know, where you're more like outreach and aggressive, or you're more like, hey, I wait for people to come to me and I want that, you know, we have the right info. And you want to find somebody that you're going to feel comfortable with in how your sales process goes. But there's, you know, as long as it's working, it doesn't matter like what personality type they are, as long as they have a personality that fits for sales, right? Okay, so, but I've known closers that are more introverts. I've known closers that are a bit more chaotic, or like myself, or a bit more J like Sarah, right? So, okay, so we've covered a little bit about how to identify them. I don't know if anybody has any other questions related to this, go ahead and throw in the chat. Yeah, Sarah posted what the DISC stands for. Let's talk about where to find them. So where are these people hanging out? Well, people that are comfortable, extroverted, connecting with people that are driven, they're hustling, they're working. Some of the like sort of interesting places to find these people is they may already be doing sales somewhere else. So they might be at like doing auto sales, which is pretty low margin. They're not making a ton of money there. There's other places they could be, right? They could be in real estate. But the challenge is if they're really good at real estate, they probably are just closing deals there and not going to be a property manager. So another option here, if they are a new agent, they have a real estate license and they're the right personality for sales, but they have no book of business yet, which is difficult to kind of prime the pump on and get started. Property management BDM work would be a great opportunity for them because they're going to be talking to investors all the time. So there's probably some back end relationships that they could create or they could get deals. So there's an incentive. This will help them build up their book of business, I would imagine, a lot faster than sitting at the front desk taking phone calls and wishing that you get thrown a bone by somebody on the call, right? Like they do at real estate offices. It's like their starting sort of position. So I think this would even be better. So that may be an opportunity for how to find them. Other places. So those that are waiters or waitresses, if they are charismatic, good with people, they're like convincing you to get additional stuff and whatever, you'll be able to tell they might be a really great salesperson. They just connect well with others. So I've noticed some waiters and waitresses, and I just immediately think, man, we should hire this person, if they're just really doing a great job. Some we've all had terrible waiters and waitresses, but that sort of personality type, you'll start to notice it in different roles in different places, right?
I kind of pointed that out to you, is that it's a great place to poach from.
Yeah.
Is if you go to a restaurant and you have a great experience with someone and they're very charismatic and they're, hey, like, let me tell you about what's really good here. You're going to want to make sure that you get this and like, make sure you save room dessert because we have this key lime pie and it's the best thing you're ever going to have. Poach them.
Yeah.
Poach them all day long. Like take them. And the insurance company that I worked at a while ago, that's what they were really good at doing that. They would go and they would find great wait staff and they would go, hey, do you want to make a lot more money than you're making now? Great. Come sell insurance.
Yeah. And the point is the best people, the best salespeople, they're not usually unemployed. They're not just sitting around looking for a job generally, right? So they're already doing some sort of sales somewhere, but there's a lot of really crappy sales positions or jobs you may be able to find. They could be knocking on your doors trying to sell pest control or solar panels, right? And if they're any good at that, then they could be somebody potentially to be poached. I don't know how to stop this noise.
It's your Delaware.
I don't know where it is.
No, I don't know where it is because you have like 98 windows open.
I may have killed it. I don't know. All right. Cool. So as far as like groups, somebody asked about that. Groups where they hang out. So there's a couple of ideas here. Generally, I don't recommend that your BDM is remote. They need to be in person and so let's talk about their role and then we can talk about maybe where they hang out. So let's talk about like what makes a BDM different than maybe a closer or a setter or a typical salesperson. Okay. So some of you think you need a BDM, and what you may actually need, if you are a decent BDM yourself, what you may actually need is just a setter, which would be an appointment setter, right? Somebody that is just doing all the sales follow-up, the lower level stuff that like kind of drains you and setting you up so that you have more opportunities to close. And so they're just basically acting like an assistant. Hey, this is, John's assistant over at XYZ Property Management. I was wondering if we could get you on another call. He said you had a really great conversation last time. He was wondering if you can meet with him Thursday at 2. Would that work for you? I think you'll really like reconnecting and hearing what he has to say and how he can help you. And that there's a nice pre-frame in that, like, etc. And they'd be like, oh yeah, sure, let's set up a time. Okay, awesome. You schedule it, you'll get some reminders, and you're going to really enjoy meeting with John. He'll see you Tuesday at 2 o'clock. So setters can instantly often double your capacity at closing deals and selling if you are currently focused on that, and you want to increase that. And a setter is going to be a lot more affordable than maybe a full-fledged BDM. Okay. Now, usually you have the two sides of the coin in sales. You have setters and you have closers, right? And so a closer would be somebody that just closes. A lot of times these could be purely commission-based, right? You could be just giving them a commission instead of a base salary. But if you're not giving them a base, then you need to be providing leads, setter, and feeding them so they can just spend their time closing. And they're usually worth their weight in gold. If they're a really good closer, they'll just tip all the deals in and so on. So now where I think a BDM is different. A BDM's job is to do lead generation, in my opinion. It's to do lead generation. It's to do networking. It's to be doing calls, outreach. Yes, including cold calls. They need to be creating their own rain, so to speak. And they will be closing. So they're almost sort of doing both roles here if they're a good BDM. But there's this attribute of networking and more in-person stuff like lunches and going to RIA groups and things like this. There's this aspect of relating and connecting with people in person that really stands out between the typical setter and closer. And so because of this, like here we would have a flat fee, and here we would have, maybe a closer could just be commission. A BDM would get both. Because we need them to be motivated to do all of this stuff. Oops, that's a G. We need them to be motivated to do, well, at least this stuff, which generates the opportunities for business. And then this would give them the commission. Because if we only pay them based on commission, they usually will quit. They will leave very quickly because they're not, spending time doing all this stuff is not, there's this leading sort of time gap to build up the flow of the sales pipeline that's typically going to take about 90 days to build up a solid sales pipeline before they start actually closing deals. Maybe it might be 30 days, it might be 60 days, maybe 90 to get fully up to speed. And so you're basically asking them to starve. So what sometimes people will do in sales is they'll give them some sort of initial chunk of change up front and then say, you'll have to earn commission to pay me back. So they start kind of in the hole or in the negative. All right, let me see if I can kill this. I'm just going to close all of this and all of this. Brave, quite brave. All right. Okay. So, okay. Any questions related to this? Are people throwing questions here? Okay. Now, a BDM, one of the qualifications also in most states, they're going to need a real estate license. So you could have them start as a setter initially while you help them get their real estate license, if that's something that is quick and easier in your state, and then that they can graduate to being, somebody that's closing deals and doing some of that stuff. But they can certainly go out and network, connect with people, and build relationships with real estate agents and stuff like this.
And then while they're unlicensed, you would just be the one who's closing.
Right.
So they'll go out, they'll do the networking, they'll create relationships, they'll just set you up.
Okay. All right. So we tackled where to find them. We talked about a few different ways. Are there groups? There are different, you could find different Facebook groups. Like, for example, you're like, oh, I'm looking for this personality type. Like I want an ENTJ or something. that doesn't have their own business, is an entrepreneur personality type, and I want to go find these people because they're just maybe more aggressive or whatever you're looking for. And you can go to, there's Facebook groups full of these people, but finding somebody local would be a bit more of a challenge, right? And so when people congregate based on their role, they're all over the place, right? And so unless you're getting remote team members, that could be it could be a bit of a challenge if you need to have somebody local. So you could look in local Facebook groups and local groups, or go to local things and see if you can identify or find some salespeople that enjoy that. Now, as far as services or placement, my brother, who has over 1,000 doors, has used one of the major ones that focuses on BDM placement, and he hired 2, and this went very poorly for him. I don't know that it's necessarily the service. I think a lot of times what happens is usually business owners are not prepared to properly do this stuff, which is onboard, train, and keep them accountable. They don't have the right support. And there's programs that claim to provide support, but the BDM has to first be the right personality fit. They have to be the right person for this. And so I think some of these agencies will help you with placement, but they don't get you the right personality fit for the role, maybe not a culture fit. And then they try to help you support them, but it doesn't work. And so, to plug DoorGrow, we have DoorGrow hiring, in which
We can't see that.
we can't say what.
We can't see that.
Oh,
There you go.
okay. Now you can see it. Okay.
You were scrunching it into the bottom and it cut it.
Oh, why is it? It's cutting it. Oh, it's not sharing all of it. Okay. All right. So DoorGrow hiring. So we can help with coaching you on how to build a really good hiring system, and helping you vet, and helping you with the proper job description and how to do all of that. So and make sure that they're the right personality fit, skill fit, and we can share with you how to make all that happen. So that's an alternative. I just see a lot of mistakes made with placement agencies because their incentive is to get that cash up front and to get you somebody, and then they give you some guarantee, we'll find you somebody else. And meanwhile, you're wasting, like, probably on a bad hire at minimum 10 grand on the person. So, and probably months of bandwidth and time in training, and it's just really defeating. The other piece is related to training. This is what we do at DoorGrow, is we help people figure out how to grow. And we have a call every Wednesday in our mastermind, and we have clients that are crushing it. So this is something we can help them with. If the BDM is bought in and, understands what they're getting into, sometimes we see BDMs that are forced to show up to calls by their boss, and they come into the program, but they don't actually turn on their cameras. They don't talk to us. They don't get better. So let's talk about.
Can we go back one step for just one second too? Is when you're looking at a service, maybe you're going to work with a placement agency or some sort of company, and that's gonna maybe help you find somebody. Just do some research on it ahead of time. And I would say just be wary of the companies that double dip here. So there are companies that they say they kind of have 2 marketing plans, and their marketing plan is, you should quit your sales job and go through our sales training, and we have this whole thing and we'll teach you all this amazing stuff, and anybody can join it, right? Like just pay us money and we'll teach you and we'll train you. And then what they do is they take this pool of people and they essentially sell them to businesses. So they get paid by the people who are paying them for the training, and they get paid again by the businesses who are buying the people who have gotten the training. Because their incentive here, they're essentially on a real estate deal, double dipping. Cool. We're like, I'm gonna list it and I'm gonna sell it. Cool. I get paid 2 times. Awesome in real estate. Not awesome when it comes to finding someone to do sales, because the company, their structure is they get paid 2 times. So someone who they're like, well, I don't know, I think I could probably sell. They're like, yeah, you can, you should do it. Come in and join our thing and we'll teach you everything that you need to know. And they don't care. There's no qualification. They're like, are you a person? Are you alive? Do you breathe? We'll sell to you. Cool. And then we're getting this whole pool of people that has gone through a training, and there might be some good ones in there, and there's going to be a lot of not so good ones in there. And then the company goes, hey, we have 1,000 people who are ready to go right now, and we'll place them in your business. And if it doesn't work out, don't worry, we'll just replace them for free. Be really careful.
Yeah. So, we've worked with companies like that in the past as well. So, they're like, be a salesperson. Anyone can do it. And they give you anyone
cannot
people,
do it.
non-person outfits. And then get a salesperson. Here's a body that we have that we can throw at you, because so they've double dipped. They've made money off of these people, and they're making money off of you. And they just churn these people through, right? So they have no incentive to get you the best person. They're just trying to get everybody placed, because they're telling these people, we'll get you a job. All right, cool. So, all right, let's talk about, which one should we tackle next?
Well, let's circle back to onboarding and training.
Okay.
Because no matter if you have a great person or someone who's not so great, if you don't set them up for success, it is 100% guaranteed failure. So you can have the best person, you can have someone who could be incredible, they are a great fit and they would do an amazing job and awesome person in general to add to your business. However, all of that goes right down the toilet if you fail to train them and onboard them. If you do not set them up for success, you will be frustrated and they will be frustrated, and it is very likely to not work out. So don't be one of those people that says, hey, I'm going to hire somebody, and then it's like, oh yeah, kind of figure it out yourself. Please don't do that, because it is so hard for that to really work out.
Okay.
And then on that note, I preach this to our clients all the time. When you're hiring somebody, everyone goes, oh, I'm in pain and I need to hire. And as soon as I hire, now my life gets easier. And you are wrong. You're in pain and you need to hire. And as soon as you hire, your life gets worse, because now your time is spent training and onboarding. And if you skip that step, your life will never get easier. So your life will get harder as soon as you hire, for a period of about 3 months. And after that, now it gets easier, because now we can relax and say, okay, this person has everything that they need, and they've been trained and they've been onboarded, and I've spent a lot of time, and they understand everything, and they have the support that they need to be successful. And now my life gets easier. But if you think you're going to hire, and then next week or 2 weeks later, everything is better now, it's just not realistic. It's not how it works.
Yeah, there's always going to be a dip when you're onboarding somebody in terms of your time, your energy, like whatever, right? Here's where you are. You're at a pretty decent spot. You bring somebody else on, and it's just going to take more of your time, and you're kind of shot in the foot, and you need to support them. Now, there's ways to kind of counter that a little bit, like maybe you get some support from DoorGrow, but regardless, there is an investment, time-wise, energy-wise, money-wise, focus, right? Time, energy, focus, cash, and effort. I'm going to try and draw a bicep here with a beefy shoulder. There we go. All right, that's supposed to be an arm. It looks like an alien snail. All right, so we've got time, energy, focus, cash, and effort. So we can help you like collapse a bit of time on this, but you're going to then get to a new normal, right? Once they're up to speed, and hopefully they continue to progress, right? Now, but yeah, and at the beginning you're shot in the foot, like it's gonna suck and it's costly. Eventually you're breaking maybe even, and then you're winning. So imagine it's gonna take maybe about 90 days to really onboard somebody. You're gonna have a lot of time and attention during the first 30 days to get them up to speed. Then they're gonna need a little bit of support, and then they hopefully are winning and starting to crush it, in about 90 days. So, all right, next, why don't we talk about compensation?
Yes, let's talk about compensation.
Okay. Here's where a lot of people make mistakes, right?
Here's your 10-minute warning.
Okay, let's be quick on this. All right, so generally most salespeople, they want to be able to live the dream of the possibility of making 6 figures. So let's just put 100K up here as a possibility, right? And this down here is like 0, right? Which is nobody wants to make. They like money. So what we need to do is you need to figure out where the typical sort of, we want them to be paid on a base and on commission. So how do we figure this out so we don't screw up incentives? We need them to be hungry. And so what we have to do is we need to figure out where is sort of the base level of compensation that they need in your market to feel comfortable or to survive, like most people. Let's say, I don't know what that might be. Let's say it's like 40K. Okay, let's say that if they're making less than 40K a year, they are not going to be comfortable and it's going to be uncomfortable or painful for them, right? And so what we want to do for the base is we want to set their base below that. So we want to set their base that below that line of comfort for them so that they are uncomfortable if they're not closing deals. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen is people will pay them more than that comfort line as their base. And so they don't even need to get commissions in order to be comfortable. They don't need to close any deals. So they don't have to do any of the sales stuff or outreach or whatever. They're just, they do enough to look like they're busy, but they're not hungry. And so we want to prevent that from happening. They need to kill to eat, right? They need to be hunting and they need to be making money. So then we want to make up the difference from that. So let's say that's maybe, let's say it's like a 30K base, for example. And that's this, right? Then we need to figure out how can they make up the difference here? Like what would that be? So that's roughly about 70K, right? Potentially that they could make. And then we want to take how many deals we're hoping they can make a month. So I think a decent BDM should at least be bringing in 10 doors a month, maybe at least 20. So you can base your math. So you can run the numbers on both of these. But if we take 70K, for example, 70K, and we divide it by 10 doors times 12. Oh, wait a sec. 10.
I have no idea what you're trying to do. What math are you trying to do?
10 doors. Divided by 12. All right. So basically, we took 70K, we divided by 10, and then we divided by 12 months on a month. No, not 12 months, by 10 doors. Anyway, by 10 doors. You want to figure out the math here so that that they have the possibility, if they're closing 10 or 20 doors a month, that they could make in a year an additional 70K. And that's what you want to base your commission off of. So for example, if let's say you gave them 200 and they were closing 10 doors a month and 200 per unit, 10 doors a month, and they did that times 12, that would be 10, and it was at 200, they would be able to make an additional 24K, right? So that's probably not enough. So let's say we want them to be closing 20 doors. 20 doors a month, that would be additional 40K at 200 months. So we want to beef that up. So maybe we're giving like 400 or 500, right? So that's how you want to kind of figure out the math. But you want to figure out, based on the difference here, how can I help them make it possible if they're crushing it to make 100K? Because we've got BDMs that are adding easily 200 to 300 doors a year if they're full-time. The other mistake I see people make is they get their BDM doing other stuff. So don't give your BDM a second job. Don't make them also a property manager. Don't give them 2 different roles. They need to be doing this and to hunt and kill and to feed you and to be making you money. All right. This makes sense? Anyone have questions related to this? This, though, is the most important piece, is there needs to be this gap. There needs to be a base. And then they need to have an opportunity commission wise to make enough to potentially, if they're absolutely crushing it, maybe they're adding 300 doors a year, they can get up to 100K. Okay.
So they shouldn't be doing leasing or sales or helping investors purchase.
So they should not be doing leasing.
They should not be doing leasing.
No, you want your salesperson to sell. That's
Yeah.
it. So don't bog down your salesperson. Like, I don't remember who it was,
Don't
but
waste their
somebody
time with
said
other
to me
stuff.
the other day, hey, I'm thinking about getting a BDM and I'm going to have them selling new clients. And then also I think I'm going to try to get them to focus on filling vacancies. No, have somebody else on the team, a leasing agent, a property manager, an assistant property manager, somebody else do that, because you don't sell to tenants the same way you sell to clients. It's a different type of sales. And filling a unit, if you have 10 units, they're all vacant, and now all of a sudden we have 0 vacancies. Did you make more money? Kind of, I guess, on a placement fee, but we're not able to do a placement fee every month. What we want is we want to grow the business. We make more money when we have more clients and more doors to manage. So that's where I want their attention. I want them to be selling new deals and not bogged down by anything else. So they should not be doing admin stuff. They shouldn't be doing anything on the back end. They should not be communicating like, oh, and then I'm also going to onboard you. No, hand them off. Let your salesperson sell. Just put on the blinders. Don't look at anything else. Anything else doesn't even matter. Just sell. And I only want you to sell.
Yeah, because this one makes you money. This just costs you money. This just costs you money. Maintenance just costs you money, right? They're feeding the business. So one of my mentors said to me the other day, he said, there's only 2 types of people in a business. There's salespeople and everyone else that is supposed to support the salesperson. So if you look at through that lens, everything you do in property management essentially is supporting or backing up the salesperson, right? And so we don't want to distract them with other stuff, because especially if they're the wrong personality type, like if they're more of a personality type that the PM stuff or the leasing stuff or the maintenance stuff or whatever else you have them doing is more enjoyable for them, they'll definitely not be doing the BDM stuff. They will put more effort into the other thing. And if they're the right personality for BDM stuff, but that stuff's a little bit more challenging, that, you know, you want the incentive to be like, and you're paying them like they can't make ends meet unless they get commissions, that it's going to be impossible. So they're always going to be below this gap, and they're going to be in pain, and they're going to leave you. I don't see a way in which that really would work out too well. Great question. So, okay.
Okay, so really good question in the chat is, well, but should the BDM then do some like customer service to the clients that they sold on? No,
but there should be a good transition.
Yes, there's a handoff. There's, hey, I usually do, like Bob sold me in, and now I'm dealing with Joe. Well, I don't know who Joe is. That's why Bob needs to do a really good handoff to Joe. But Bob should not be bogged down with dealing with customer service, because customer service does not make you money. You want Bob to make you money. He's the rainmaker. Customer service does not add, it doesn't grow the business. It just maintains the business that you already have.
Yeah. So I don't know what we call this, but I'll just say client success. But this
Like
is
your property manager?
what?
Like your property manager?
Okay, we'll do PM. All right. So yeah, so you'll see here, like this is kind of the transition period where there needs to be this handoff, and this is part of your onboarding process, is that the BDM is going to, hey, let's do a meeting where I'm going to connect you with Susie. She's your property manager. You're going to have a great experience. Like maybe they do a session or 2 to kind of do this handoff, and you're going to be in Susie's capable hands. She's way better at this than me. She's going to take care of you. And so Susie loves the details, stuff like that. Okay. All right. So let's go. These are great questions.
They are good questions.
Okay.
There's another one. How about a graduated scale? Right. So, and I've seen this before where you can just pay somebody. There's different ways to structure this, right? Where you pay somebody one time. It's like, hey, you closed a deal. Good for you. Here's your money. Maybe it's $300. Like, you close your deal. Here's your $300. Great. You can also structure it so that you pay them for maybe the first 3 months, but it actually is a decreasing scale. So you might get, this much the first month, and then a little bit less the second month, and then a little bit less the third month. And that way it's not as much of a hit to your pocket. If you're like, well, I want them to close deals, but like, oh, cash flow is a little tight, you can do it that way. I wouldn't do it the opposite way though, where like month 1, you get a little, month 2, you get more, and month 3, you get a lot, because then their brain is going to be trained on month 4 to get more, because that's kind of what's been happening. And instead of them getting more, they all of a sudden get none. So we would want to do it a lot, a little, and then, then it disappears.
Okay. The other thing I'll add is I think something concrete, like, hey, you'll get X number of dollars per door, instead of, hey, you'll get a % of whatever you bring in. This is more concrete. And so this is going to be more real, and they're going to have better incentive. And so and then they know what they get. So maybe it's like, you give them $500 per unit, or half of the lease up fee, what it's typically. So you're like, okay, maybe that's like $500, whatever. But you want the compensation to be something that that's going to be, flat on a per unit basis, I would say, instead of a percentage. Because then they have to do math every time to figure it out. And that's a little fuzzier. People want to chase after a real prize.
Yes.
Okay.
Clarity in the chat based on production. So if you close, well, hopefully 0, because I'm not paying you anything to close 0 deals.
Okay.
So if you close 1 to 10 units, then it's this much. If you close 11 to 19, then it's
like a sliding
this
scale.
much. So if you do it that way.
So the other piece I would say is simplicity tends to win, because it's in their head. Simplicity. There you go. So I like simplicity. Yes, if you feel like they are motivated to do that, then maybe you could do a sliding scale. I find that the more complicated you make compensation, because you already have a base, then you have a percentage, but then you're like, hey, or not a percentage, but really a commission. And you have this commission that they can get based on units, and then it changes all the time depending on how many units they get. They're going to have to be figuring stuff out on a spreadsheet on a regular basis to probably try and figure it out I would recommend you just keep it simple initially. Because they're motivated to win, they're adding more units, they're making money, and it's a one-time, anything here is a one-time fee that they get at the beginning. They're never paid anything residually on the units.
Correct.
Because the goal for them is to get you new business. Everyone else on the team is to keep the business. Okay.
And what you could do, if you're really interested in it, is if you're like, hey, I really want to incentivize them to do, I feel like 10 is a good number. They can do 10, but I would really love if they did more than 10. So maybe you figure out what is that point at which it's just a stretch, right? 10 is doable. 15, that would be awesome if they did it. And maybe the magic number is then 18. Like, oh man, 18 would be, they're really pushing themselves to do it. So perhaps then what you do is a bonus. If you do hey, this is the number, and it's the number no matter how many units you close that month. If you reach, let's say 15, 18, 16, 20, whatever it's going to be. If you do, this many or higher in the month, you'll get an extra flat fee bonus of X dollars.
Yeah, I like
and
that.
Then that way it's not like, oh, well, I get paid $200 for my first 10, but then it's $275 for my next 9.
Yeah.
And then it's $4, whatever. Then it gets really, and trust me, you're an accountant. And if you're the accountant, you're going to hate that. So just make it really easy. And just have it be the number is the number. And then if you reach this number, and that number has to be a stretch, I'll also give you an extra $500, whatever it is. I'm just picking a number.
So so if they achieve a certain level, and I would change this each month. You want to give them a stretch goal, right? Oh, they're crushing it every month at 10 doors. Don't want to keep giving them a bonus every time they get 10 doors. You're like, now if you hit 20, I'm going to give you this, or hit like 15. And so they start to build this momentum and building up their pipeline.
Good question in the chat. Do you pay when the contract is signed or when we actually get the revenue? So if you sign the contract, but let's say we're like mid-month and we don't actually collect anything rent-wise until the following month, or it's vacant and now we don't collect anything until we place a tenant, don't keep your salesperson waiting because they will resent you for that. So like, hey man, like I closed 2 deals and like just because they're vacant, then what we're doing now is we're narrowing their focus and we're saying, well, I don't want to sell this person, or I don't want to chase this person because all of their units are vacant and then I have to wait to get paid, you know? So when they close the deal, we want to reward the good behavior. And we want, it's not instant, right?
Sure. But like at the end of the month,
we want it to be pretty darn close.
How do you do the pay? Like, yeah. So yeah, there needs to be a pretty short lag time in paying them out. You'll have to figure that out. That's going to be, obviously, if you can't afford to do it otherwise. Like it's like a big property and they bring in 30 units or something, or they bring in an investor. He's like, here's my 20 units. And, you know, paying out a commission on that, they might need to wait. But at least they know it's in the pipeline. They're excited about it. So, okay. So I think we've covered comp, when to get them. Oops. When to get them. So
we are over time.
Okay.
So we do this part.
So we'll wrap this up. When's the right time to get them? So I think it depends. It depends on whether you are miserable doing sales and you don't really enjoy that aspect. If you do enjoy that aspect, you may not need one of those for a long time. You may just want a setter. You may want some support mechanisms built around you so that you can do more of that thing if you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, then it's probably like as soon as possible, you need to get somebody to start doing this piece on your behalf so that you can get out of it. And the way that we figure out when the right time is to get any team member is we have clients do what we call a time study and to figure out which things are your minus signs and which things are your plus signs. And so this is a framework and a thing we go through in the mastermind to help you really figure this out. Every hire should be based on a time study, based on supporting you, based on helping you grow the business, based on what you need. And if they're not justified based on the time study, I find that you're making a lot of mistakes financially in your decision-making, and you're building the business based on what the business needs instead of what you need. And so the business will eventually become a more and more strong prison and slave master over you than taskmaster over you that you are serving, and you'll become more and more in your minus signs and miserable. So we want to focus on every time we add team members, we're getting rid of those minus signs so you can spend more in your plus signs. And a lot of you don't have clarity on that until you do a time study. And it becomes more clear where is my time going and what would give me the most momentum. And if so, a BDM would be a sooner hire if that is something that is a big minus sign for you right now, and it's preventing the business from getting revenue and growth, and it can make you a lot more money. If you had that, then it would definitely be a good idea to get a good BDM.
Like if you hate sales, you hate it, you're like, oh, this is horrible, I don't want to do it, then hire someone to do it who loves doing it. If you love doing it and then you're bogged down by other things, then figure out, well, how can I offload those other things so that I can spend more time doing sales?
Okay. So we don't have time to probably cover everything here. I'll just touch on a couple of these ideas real quick. As far as interviewing and vetting, the most important thing is to focus on the 3 fits. So we first start with culture. We want to identify culture fits. We don't want to waste time interviewing anyone that's not a personality fit. And then skill we can teach, but it's nice to find people that have skill. The big problem most people make is they just look who has skill, and then they hire those people. That's the one thing you can change. So this is not the primary indicator of whether you should bring somebody on. It should be first and foremost culture, because that has to be there. And then for the role, it needs personality. So this is how we do interviewing in our DoorGrow hiring process, how we coach you on doing this so that you don't waste a lot of money and make a lot of mistakes and have a bad hiring and onboarding experience. As far as a game plan, measuring performance, Generally, if you have a really good personality fit, you just want to be paying attention to, are they making progress? We don't need a million KPIs and metrics, but we want to focus on the leading metrics. How many calls are they making? How many events are they attending on a monthly basis? How many outreaches, right? We want to, how many lunches have they gone to with real estate agents, to network or connect that might have investors, right? So those leading metrics are the things that get you closed deals. And so if you focus too much on the metric of how many doors did you get this month, then you're helping them prioritize the wrong thing. You need to prioritize the leading metrics that lead to the deals. So they focus on doing the things that get them the business. Does this make sense? Okay. So I would just focus on tracking some of the basic things like calls, outreaches, lunches, lunch appointments, stuff like this that are going to be feeding. So you can see where's their output for that base portion of the salary. What are they doing to generate business? And then commission wise, they will be hungry enough. They should have a built-in incentive to be closing deals. So you really want to get them focused on the leading metrics and what they should be doing as part of their basically their day job of generating the business and doing business development. Who generates the leads? It should be them. Now, this is super important. If you generate the leads for them, which means you're doing cold lead marketing, APM leads, advertising, stuff like this, you actually are hurting your BDM and you're making them worse. A lot of business owners, I have a client right now, he is trying to do SEO and pay-per-click and content marketing, even though I told him to not waste time and money on that. And he has a full-time BDM he's paying a large base to, and that BDM is frustrated and is message being told me because she is being told to waste time learning all these systems, focusing on SEO, focusing on the lead gen, going on these marketing calls with marketers, instead of just reaching out to people and closing deals. Meanwhile, I've got a client, Kent, no BDM. He had 105 doors in 6 months just by picking up the phone for 2 to 3 hours a day using one of our strategies. And so I've seen a BDM of a 1,500 unit company, and his strategy was to get leads from APM. They bought 322 leads in a year, and they closed only 19 units from all of that. And they have a full-time BDM and a full-time setter to make that system kind of work. And so that's not profitable. That's just basically losing money on the cold leads. Now, this business gets 40 units a month organically, though, from their existing investors and clients just because of their size. So they aren't paying attention to that. So don't junk up your pipeline and waste your BDM's time with a bunch of cold lead advertising, which is a big expense anyway. You can eliminate that expense, get them into DoorGrow, and we can coach them on the right outreach and strategies to grow the business without having to waste money on lead generation. They will go create the leads, and they'll be better and they'll be warmer, and the close rate will be 80, 90% on warm leads versus 10% that you get on cold leads, which means less time, less money, and more doors. Cool. So we answered who generates the leads. So, and game plan, as far as that, I would reach out to us at DoorGrow if you're needing any help with any of this. Otherwise, hopefully you've got a pretty good idea of high level of what to do and what not to do from this call. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And I would just say, if you are not yet in the mastermind and you're looking at any of this, reach out to us or just let us know, like ping us. If you want to just put the word sales in the chat, then we can have our team reach out to you and just jump on a call and see, like, hey, does it make sense for you to hire somebody right now? Who should be doing the sales right now? Do you need a BDM, or is it going to be a setter or a closer? How is this all going to work? What do we pay them? How do I support them? Can DoorGrow help me train this person? The answer is yes. So if you're interested in getting more information about any of that and you're not yet in our mastermind, just put the word sales in the chat, and that way our team can reach out to you, or you can just check us out at doorgrow.com.
Awesome. So reach out to us. We would love to support you and help you. And for those that are watching the replay, don't comment sales in the chat because we probably won't see that.
That is accurate.
So reach out to us. You can send us a DM on social media, message us, schedule a call through doorgrow.com, and we would love to support you. So this is a very solvable problem, but it's a challenging issue that your BDM needs support. The last thing I want to add that I think is super important: if the BDM is not making progress, This is the other thing I see during the onboarding, and we see this sometimes. If the BDM is not making progress, you're not paying attention, and it's not working, even if you're working with DoorGrow, if they're not making an improvement significantly as they're going through, then they're doing something wrong. They might be the right culture fit, personality fit. Maybe they even have skill, but they're lacking something in skill. And if they're not getting consistently better every single week, they're stuck on something and something is wrong and they don't know it. And they're tolerating something that they shouldn't be. So for example, they might be making cold calls and everybody's just rejecting them, which means they are doing a sucky cold call. And so this is where they need a coach. They need somebody to listen to that call. They need us to give them feedback so that we can say, oh, well, the reason this is happening is because you're doing this, and try it this way so that they start making progress. So don't tolerate as a business owner a lack of progress, period. There has to be progress. And if there's no progress, they either are not getting the right skill and training or they're the wrong personality fit. Cool. Or they're just not motivated and you need to let them go, right? So, but usually we find it's a training issue and they're just not being checked and there's nobody like pushing them to change it or fix it. And they're not bringing their problems to a coach to say, hey, I'm now at this stage, these things aren't working. We'll solve that. Then they got to get to the next stage because a pipeline has multiple stages that, the setting, closing, etc. All right. That's all I'll say. There's a lot more I could talk about on this. If you want to hear more about this kind of stuff, get on our coaching calls in our mastermind, and we would love to support you and help you identify the leaks, challenges, and get all this stuff going. And until next time, to our mutual growth. Bye, everyone.